Welcome in, everyone. RFU Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here, as we look a little bit bigger now, a little bit larger on the screen
because we're lifting weights.
We're lifting weights, yes, but, or the boxes just got bigger. One of the two.
No, it's not that. It's the other thing.
Fair. Oh, welcome in, everyone. How you doing, John? How's your weekend? Hope it was.
I'm good, man. I was at OV's likely finale on Sunday at the Cap One Arena. That was really cool to be a part of.
Do you think? You truly think that's it?
I do. I think he's done. We'll see shortly. But I've also been following the Hurricanes Flyers game as we wait for this show. And as of recording, the Hurricanes benched their entire top two lines and still somehow found a way to get up 2-0 in the first period, but have given that up, and now it's 2-2. So
they need the Flyers to lose both games in order to make the playoffs, right? Yes, I believe that's. I've admittedly been a bit out of the realm with.
Tune back in right now. This is the this week.
This is the moment. This is the moment when they're about to lose their franchise piece. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good time. Well, they've got so many good young players, so we could do it. There's Caps podcasts, right? I just don't have.
I'm sure there are. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There definitely. I listened to some during their 2018 run for sure.
Was Japers Rink? Are they just a website?
I think they still exist. I don't know.
Man, I need to get. I just listened to the official team one. Anyway, if you want to hear that's another Patreon, I guess. Jon and Ted's Caps Talk. How was your weekend?
That was good. I was I did less refereeing, which was nice. It wasn't the full day extravaganza. It was just a couple games on Saturday, a couple games on Sunday, kind of the usual rhythm. Got an offer for some other person for some games after I finished my first games on Saturday, and I said no, I'm good. I'm gonna go.
Do you have a pedometer running for how much on the week? Like how much did you run this weekend?
I've got my. I can look it up. I'm
curious.
I left my. I have to look up, see if my Samsung Health app. It's usually around 20,000-30,000 steps. Is kind of the norm.
Not bad.
Definitely gets up there during the tournament weekends, and I'm doing 3 or 4 matches. So I'm sure I could find the height of what I do.
I would be so annoyed if my watch didn't catch that and you refereed an entire game and it gave you no credit for that. It would just didn't register. I'd be like, that sucks.
So I've got my match. I track my matches all on my watch as well. I've got an app that sets the teams and everything. It gives me little stats, like a little heat map on the field.
That's cool.
That shows me
very cool
where my sprints are and stuff. So it's kind of cool. I can see I look at one game I really wasn't into that one.
I need that for beer league hockey, where it's your max speed was 6 miles per hour. I was thinking, so we got really bad. This will be the end of hockey talk. We were in the rafters basically for this game because it was the last game, so tickets were so expensive. I was like, just get me in the door. And I was thinking, you can only see from this high up really good hockey. You can't see bad hockey from this because there's no upper deck at bad hockey. And I was curious how horrible men's league, beer league hockey would look from high, because the speed would be so slow. It would be slow motion hockey. And I want to see it. Now I really want to see the guys that I play with skating from the upper deck, from the 400s at the Cap One. It would be just so bad. I wish I could see it. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough hockey talk, unless they make the playoffs, and then I'll probably talk about it next week when it's a solo show. I'll be talking a lot of Caps next week.
Let's talk about our twice losing and double losing DC United.
So that's so much more fun.
Somehow still, I believe in the playoff. I believe we're still in the playoffs because the East is dog doo-doo right
dog
now.
Water.
Kind of incredible. People talked about how good the East was and how compared to the West, and it is flipped. It has flipped, which is good for us because we are not a good team, and that gives us just more opportunities to potentially be in the playoff picture, despite having games like this.
Yeah. Timothy Park wants to know, before we jump into the game, he wants to know, why does Renée keep going with the same starting lineup? It was basically the same on Saturday, except for Baribo being out.
Yeah.
I think the cool thing about Renée Wilder is, I think he might be if he weren't a coach of the show, if he weren't a coach of this team, he would be a listener of the show, because in his mind, he's like, this team is just not good enough. It doesn't matter who I put out there, really. None of these guys are going to create any chances. It doesn't matter. I think that's kind of where he's at with that. So he's like, you pick the lineup. Who cares? You want to put in Jacob Merrill? Sure, we can do that. Yeah. False 9, Jackson Hopkins as our offensive. Yeah, let's do that. Whatever. Great. Let's try it. That's kind of what I feel about why he thinks about lineups. He just doesn't really care.
That was probably the big story. And I believe, by the way, if you're a member of our Patreon and you have the $5 tier, please go listen. And if you haven't, you can join. You can join that $5 tier. Go listen to the excellent podcast that you did with Jason Anderson. Fought through some technical stuff. I heard you guys were on
so much.
You guys were on. You guys had to be on. CIDs had to be on Zoom in order to get that podcast.
We were basically doing like 2 cans with a string, and I think was the next step. We were going to write letters to each other and write them down. It was horrible.
Yeah. Well, but you got through it, and he produced a really good content, really good show. Jason's always got some really excellent insight, and always makes me think a little bit about this team and
he's
kind of
calm.
where they're.
It's like he's the antidote for you and I being like, this team is going to give me an aneurysm. He's like, they were real bad last year.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah. But I think that the main story came from, obviously this was coming off the 4-0 loss to Dallas. And I think the big question was, would we see some lineup changes? Would we see, Renee in the press conference, basically lamented his team, said this team gave up. Would there be major lineup changes? And, I'm going to stop saying whether I think this is like the moment for Luis to start. I thought this was the moment for him to start. I thought this was the moment to put him out there, have him go 45, 50, even 45 minutes, just give him a starting opportunity, give him a moment. And Renee was like, nah, we're just gonna put Pirani, Jackson Hopkins. We're going to put Herrera at right midfielder, and we're going to go with it.
Ted, have you considered that the next game is his game to get an opportunity potentially against a lower league side? Maybe potentially.
Maybe that actually could happen. That actually could happen. And
the softest pillow of a first start that he could give him.
I did not join the press conference, but I would have asked. I am curious. I'm like, what are you looking for? I mean, there is one player who conceivably should make your team better that's on the bench. And if you're not, so you talked about how he's like, well, it doesn't matter. This team's not good enough. It's like, well, you have one player your team spent $7 million on.
Maybe he hates him. Maybe he really dislikes him.
But see, this is the thing. This is the one player he went and scouted personally. He is sitting in the stadium talking to Luis's agent, who was a former model, apparently, which is some
maybe wild. So he got lost in his eyes and was like, "Yeah, we'll pay whatever."
In her eyes. Even there you go. She's a female agent who used to be a model. That's some interesting news for you. But it's all rather like kind of like baffling. In a certain sense, like why, is it fitness? It could be fitness. Maybe that's the excuse. I don't know. Maybe if I get the opportunity, and I have a free moment, I might jump on the Thursday podcast and just kind of ask him, what are you looking for here? What more do you need to see, so to speak?
We get to be kind of kamikaze pilots as far as these questions go, because we're not always on. You can just go in and ask that question like, hey, why do you hate him? You hate him, right? You hate him. That's probably what it is, right?
Yeah, no, and he'll give us his usual Swiss answer.
He will.
I'm sure.
And that's okay.
I'm sure. But DC United falling 1-0, playing the same lineup. Obviously, Tai Baribo being hurt out. He's presumably got back into training.
Mid-May. But that's football. They're just making stuff up.
I don't think that's
just
right.
Like our permanent illness for Karamoko that we still haven't heard anything about. Yeah. That's another thing you should ask him about. He'll be like, who?
This is a classic. I think this is a classic. If this is a playoff event, if this is we're getting to squeaky bum time, or maybe we're needing a win to keep ourselves in the playoffs, he's on the bench. He's at least on the bench. Maybe he starts. I think this is a precautionary type thing, a precautionary type move. I think he will be fully trained this week. I think he will probably doesn't play on Wednesday against Wennox in the Open Cup. But I think by Saturday he'll be in the lineup. You will see him there. So Tai Baribo out, Aaron Herrera in. A really kind of like cagey first half. I don't know really what we expected. DC not really showing much offensively.
You are forgetting the offensive juggernaut that is the Matty Peltola pile driving 20-yard shot off the post. That has become his new brand. He's like, hey, I'm not going to hit it hard, but I'm going to hit it pretty accurately, almost in the minute. And
in watching highlights from from his time in Finland, he can shoot. He can take a crack from outside the box. That isn't his skill set. He hasn't really shown it at all here. He has 1 goal to his name, which was kind of like a weird, funky deflection.
And Renée made fun of him when he scored. He was like, "That's not really his game." He disagrees with your scouting report, but it's entirely possible that he has not seen those games that you saw in the Europa League. It's entirely possible.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I watched 1 game in the Europa. He did not do that, but I have seen some highlights of him in Finland where he has taken a shot from outside the box. So.
That's as many as Renée saw of Louis before he signed. We only need the one.
Beyond that moment, and maybe I think one other moment from Pirani, who I thought had a poor game. Jason Anderson kind of disagrees with me. He said, "Oh, he made some nice runs," and I said, "Yeah, but like literally every time he got the ball in the offensive third, that's where the attack just went to die."
He's grading on a curve. I think he's like, well, it's a given he's going to give the ball away, but did he run? Did he go to places, which he did more of?
And we'll get into a little bit, this whole argument of Luis versus Pirani and what do you do in this situation. And I have some evidence here that I think leads me to believe that Luis should start, but we'll get into that in a minute. But really nothing else from this team offensively. I think there was very little movement. I thought, Jackson Hopkins struggled a little bit, had some nice runs, but other than that,
you don't say as the position they put him in that he did not excel. Well, I mean, I had talked before about I like to see him closer towards the goal, not that close to the goal. I think that's too close. I mean, perhaps that's not for him. But it is wild that very similar to last year. If our target number 9 is hurt or unavailable, we don't have one. We cannot create a facsimile.
I mean, the guy that was probably supposed to take that role, Gabe Segal, is out for 6 to 8 weeks at this point. I think he'll be back probably after the World Cup break, presumably. So that's your backup. He's gone. Jacob Murrell, not maybe kind of that number 9 replacement, but not. I think maybe in a normal team, they probably would say at the end of this season, like, all right, it didn't work out. We try the championship, we'll see how it goes from there. But I don't know if he's I'm sure if it's like the normal MLS contract, they've got like 5 team options from here on out. But I would say, I don't think it's clicking. You think Murrell, this is it for Murrell as far as
again, on a normal team, on a team with the expectations of some greater success, I would say, yeah, but maybe not here.
We'll see. Renée has highlighted, 3 transfer windows. I'm guessing he includes this one. So 2 more transfer windows. So presumably the summer window and the winter window, they will have some flexibility that will presumably open up. But other than that, not a whole lot offensively. Again, like we said, defensively, I thought, okay. And then really the goal kind of comes from kind of a rare sort of bad moment from Hefty. Kind of stands up, tries to sort of play the ball, and basically just gets kind of like, nope, we're just going to push you off, kind of loses his balance. The entire defense freezes, pops out to the Revs attacker whose name escapes me on who actually scored the goal. But anyway, 1-0. I don't know, like there was some other kind of, maybe some other moments in that first half. That maybe was the only moment I think that New England really had, other than a couple sort of more routine saves for Johnson, who I thought, honestly, this was maybe the first game where I thought Johnson had kind of a performance, maybe not like a stand on your head type performance, but certainly a performance that made you go, he certainly still has some juice left in that bag of his. The goal really is not his fault. The defense kind of hangs him out to dry. Youssef was the goal, by the way.
I was just getting there for you.
Yeah, so Youssef with the goal. Kind of like a really sloppy goal, a rare sort of one of the more poor moments from Hefty I think we've seen this year. I don't know if there's anything else to really dissect there. It's just kind of like the defense caught off a little bit. We talk about this team being better defensively, and they are. Sans the Dallas game, even this game, I thought they were pretty good defensively. You're not going to be perfect every game. You're going to have moments where things are going to get broken down. This is a league where it's very top heavy. You have attackers that are paid a lot more. Your goal is to just keep it within reason. If you are going into every game looking at a 50-50 shot of 0 to 1 goals given up a game, you have a good defense in this league. You have a very good defense in this league.
It's just about that other side of that. It's just about that other side of that equation.
It is about the attack. It is certainly about the attack.
Well, philosophically, I mean, we're speculating because right now it would appear like I remember we had a week off, and they were like, we're going to spend this time trying to figure out how to create chances, and then we came back, and I think it was the FC Dallas game after that. So my perspective is it's not a matter of increased training. It's not a matter of someone else getting healthy. Like these pieces as constituted, and this is sort of backed up by what Renee said, cannot do that thing. They're not going to score 3 goals. That's just probably not ever going to happen. What do you think is if the window comes, they make some moves. They're going to have to. They bring in the extra DP. Maybe they make some more moves around the league. Do you think they can make the changes necessary and keep the defense stout as it is? Like, how do you attribute the defending? Is it just to the actual? Is it whole team defending? Like, if we replace a Jackson Hopkins with a more skilled offensive player and get Pirani out of here for a number 10 that can stay healthy and can contribute, and is there concern if they make those moves that our defense will suffer if we start chopping and changing at the front end of the 11, or do you think not the case? Hard to say.
It's honestly a possibility. I mean, I think your idea here is that, and again, with regards to Louis Munteanu, I mean, at a certain point, this guy does have to start. I know the whole situation is strange that he hasn't gotten an opportunity. We have some questions coming up about him, and kind of, again, he looks better, I think, than Pirani out there, and I would like to see him get an opportunity to start, because I think I can judge him a little better in that moment than I could say if he is, out on his own. But presumably, Pirani starts, or sorry, that Louis starts. So there's conceivably your improvement in the attack. Baribo's out there as well. And then it's a question of, what do you do sort of on the right and left midfield spots? And I still target the Cervenia spot. Cervenia's been good, but I would really love to see this team go get, a high level number 8 type player. That's where you're weakest right now, is in midfield. If Cervenia, so far they've been extremely lucky. Cervenia and Patola have gone down. If one of them goes down, you're looking at Markovic in that center midfield. You're looking at Jackson Hopkins probably slotting back. So not exactly great depth there. I think that is depth that you absolutely look to try to figure out. But I think that's where you look for your DP slot. I think you try to look for a sort of two-way box to box type attacker, somebody that can, be kind of be a big chance creator, maybe play like a hybrid 10-8 type role. Yeah, maybe where he's pushing forward, he's able to sort of supply, Munteanu with the chances. He's able to supply Baribo with chances.
It's Frank Lampard. We need to get in a time machine and bring over Frank Lampard.
The other option now too is to look on the wing too, which I don't think I think I think you do have a sense of like, those are the two positions you maybe seek, and whichever player, maybe you'll get a bunch of candidates, and whichever one maybe you're closest to getting in the summer, and which one you think is the better of the talents, whether it's in the wing and the 8, you figure it out. That's kind of what you do with designated players. Maybe that, shifts the lineup in general into something a little different. But
I guess like my key question is, like where I was going with that was like, if you sacrifice the Cervenia role, the second 6, does the defense stay as stout? Like if you put someone that has more of a mind to actually connect passes and be dangerous. And I think maybe, but it probably is, it still nets out positively, because you can't get into the playoffs just losing every game 1-0 or doing scoreless draws.
Well, I think this is where, again, the Herrera kind of right midfield type role benefits.
What did you think of him? Let's talk about that. I think that's probably.
Again, I thought he was good. I thought there was a noticeable improvement, sort of with him out there on the field. I don't think he did anything really flashy in this game. He had one sort of, chance where he sort of went into the box, but
he has not been working on the finishing. I think he's not been in the finishing line for a few years, and that was kind of obvious. But that's okay. That's not what he's. I think he was like 5 for 5 on crosses.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think his ability to be on the width to contribute to the attack, I think it did sort of push Hefty kind of down into more of that right back role. So he wasn't able to get us forward. So it'll be interesting to see how you compensate that. There wasn't as much connecting with him. But overall, I mean, I thought he is still every bit the quality, high-level MLS player that you need if you're going to be, a full-fledged competitive team. You need these types of players, and I think he's there. So I'm excited he's back. I think maybe the thoughts and the mood everybody was seeing with him maybe were a little overblown. It seems like he wants to be here. I thought he was okay. I thought he was good. Nothing flashy, but just kind of a solid sort of right back type performance from him. So
happy to have Kye Rowles back as well. I think that is he. we talk about sort of the players who have been rejuvenated or juvenated for the first time with Renée Wilder, and I think obviously we've talked about Maddie Pelto a lot, but Kye Rowles is the other one. He's become in his second year, and often it takes that sometimes. Usually not for like a mid-career player who's seasoned and has played in Europe before, but it took him a little bit of time on a bad team, and now he is, I think, one of probably the second name you pencil in, or third name after Sean Johnson and Maddie.
I think it's interesting. I think Bartlett and Rowles are two players that complement each other very, very well. Bartlett is the gritty, jump up physical type defender, very similar to Sean Nealis in a lot of ways, kind of that physical type presence. But not as very quick. And I think Rowles has a little more quickness to him, a little more speed. He's pressing. He'll kind of disrupt the ball in the center of the field. He's willing to kind of read those types of passes a little bit better. So definitely a different type of player. And I think they complement each other very well. And I think that's, part of the reason why they struggled, I think, more defensively against Dallas was, I don't think Sean Nealis and Bartlett were kind of the same player defensively. So it limited sort of the options. But you'll see a lot of times Rowles pushes into the midfield to break up a pass and to start an attack, for instance, and get the team going.
That's his heat map. Definitely, I was looking at his heat map before the game or before the show, and that is definitely substantiated by what you're saying. He's of the two, he's the more linking center back. Although like 2 for 12 on long balls, probably not great. But that is also because Jackson Hopkins is not Tai Baribo or Christian Benteke. So there's that.
And, he's also, this team is playing very direct. They're playing clearance. So he's going to get the ball. He's going to pump it up field. He's not necessarily looking for a pass. He's just looking to get the ball kind of out of harm's way. Out of harm's way. Looking back at I kind of watched the highlights, just to kind of remind myself of certain moments and instances that happened in the game. There wasn't much after the first half, and not until the 68th minute when I believe Mr. Louis Munteanu checked in right around then. So not a whole lot from this team. Luis checks in, I believe, around the 60th minute. Almost over that time when Luis steps in, Jackson Hopkins looks like a much better player. He is much more able to link to the attack. I don't think Luis didn't generate much chances, but I thought his movement was still better than Pirani.
I'll compare. So the impact on the game, and this is not a perfect stat, but so he played 30 minutes and had 13 touches on the ball, and Gavin Turner played 16 minutes and had 11 touches on the ball in all of the in the parts of the field you want to have him have the ball. So I think his movements might have been well. There might have not been a great job of linking him. He was probably making the runs that you'd want to make, but he does not appear to be the player. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like Lucho is a guy I think of, like, if he came in, he would be on the ball. He would be trying to dribble past players. Lewis seems more of a player who is trying to make a run and then maybe set up a 1-2 after he gets the ball and bypasses a center back. But it was I thought interesting that Gavin Turner is very much playing like a guy who's like, I have 10 seconds to play, and I'm gonna fly around the ball so that I can make some sort of impression on this coach, so he gives me more time on this team that has no offense. So good for him for doing that. At least. Yeah,
I will state with the role he is being asked to play, the role that Luis is being asked to play in this game is vastly different than the role he will be asked to when he's paired up with Tai Baribo. He is basically playing Tai Baribo's role, which is get forward, look for opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net. I think again the script around this offense was like entirely predictable. It was entirely based upon the fact this team had no other chance creation. Luis was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to come in and provide said chance creation, but I don't think that is right now anything that we've seen so far in the few minutes. But again, as Jason talked about, and I'm like, I want to see a starting role. I want to see a role where he is asked to kind of start to dictate the play versus stepping in for 20, 30 minutes when, the team's chasing a lead or chasing a goal or trying to sit back and maybe hold on to a lead or hold on to something. Maybe there's something here.
You want to get to some questions?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Sid, Alekis fan says, have you seen anything you like from Luis in his limited minutes so far? What is Renee's plan for him? We're all getting antsy over the expensive $7 million investment. I think the injury is kind of saving him. He picked up an injury that kind of like, you can use the argument, well, he's still not match fit. He's picked up an injury. He's been out for a bit. We're still trying to work to get him up to fitness. I don't. Yeah, but genuinely speaking, I would have thought at this point we would have had Louis start at some point. And I really, yeah, I look at like the Pirani experience thus far. Sure, maybe I'll give Jason a little bit of that. Yeah, he was better, but in my opinion, this is a position where you can't really grade on the curve because the offense has been so poor. This team has had, I mean, if you look at what goals they've had from open play, it's been what, 2 so far? 2 of their 4 goals have been from open play. They have had 1 penalty kick. They had 1, the Peltla goal, which was a weird, odd deflection. They've had the, I guess 3
goal game 1.
Yeah, the goal in game 1, and then the goal and the goal against Atlanta was, I believe in the off the run of play, may come off a throw or something like that. But regardless, like, not a whole lot of goals in the run of play, and I can't believe there's at least some notion of like, well, maybe we need to mix this up a little bit. Maybe we need to figure something out. And you've got Luis standing right here, and I feel like, you know what, I think this is he knows the team around him isn't good enough. And I think he's trying to hold out as long as he can. Maybe honestly give him, until maybe the summer window when he can get a team around him that can sort of be a little more connecting or be a more supply. I don't know. That's kind of what it feels like.
I hope that's not it. I hear what you're saying. I hope that is not what he's thinking. For this team to have spent that money on this player, to have been like, I don't want to expose you to the suck that is DC United. We got to wait until, like, sorry, man, if you come here, you buy a ticket, take a ride. Like, you're going to be around some garbage players sometimes. That's the deal.
I also do think there is I think if Luis has a couple goals, an assist, he's probably starting. I think there is a notion of, well, you're going to have to earn, like, there are no guarantees. I don't care about how much you make. You're going to go out there and you're going to earn your place. And I would say
unless
right
your
now,
name is Pirani, in which case you don't have to earn your place. It's given to you.
Yeah, but I mean, has Luis, to my argument, I think he's been better, but I don't think Luis has done anything spectacular.
No, but like typically in the case where everyone sucks, you eventually be like, all right, well, we're going to try this guy. We're going to give this guy a shot. It's not a matter of giving you minutes. It's just a matter of like the other guy didn't earn his minutes. And I think this is mostly about the $7 million. And it was mostly about him being lauded as like, this is a major sign of the dedication of this ownership to this team. And he's going to come in here. He's a European talent targeted by Celtic and other teams. Like, he's going to make his team better. And then if all those things weren't said, if he was Martin Rodriguez, for instance, who no one would care. It's fine. What are you going to do? But that's not where we find ourselves. We've got questions here from Simply B1 says, this is mostly for Ted because he talks about this guy a lot. Atlanta is getting antsy on Latte Loth. If DC United were to take him on like ATL did with Click, do you think that would be a good combo with Baribo?
Absolutely.
Ted is not a fan.
No. Number one, Lock would burn an international slot. So I am presuming that Kye Rowles was not in the lineup last time because he's close to getting a green card. I have to think that is I so miss Stephen Goff because I bet Stephen Goff would have had this because remember Pirani missed the game once. Everyone's like, "Where's Pirani? What's going on with him? He was getting a green card." I have to think Rawls is on his way to a green card. So that frees up an international slot. You would be burning that last. Yes, you can trade for them. You can move, sure, but I think you would want to keep those international slots more naturally than anything. So you're burning an international slot on a player who has been absolutely awful in Atlanta, where he has more access to more talent around him. And I think Locke still has maybe not as much value, but certainly has some value. Maybe to another championship side. I fully expect this guy to get sold. I think it'll be for a fourth of the price that they paid for him. If they're lucky, I think that'll be a big win if they do it, but I think he'll be gone.
Arthur Blank is like, whatever. That's cool. Simply B1 says, second question. Do we think that it's more, and this is a question that it's a question. It's fair. And I think it's also, I'm starting to read more fan discontent about this team right now. After the 4-0 loss. And then after this, I'm starting to get a lot of like, this sucks. Says, do we think it's more likely that Wilder gets dismissed or that he leaves out of pure frustration? Over under on when? I have been thinking a lot about Wilder, and if you heard me talk about Jason's perspective on him, it basically was that he is measured and he's not going to say anything that's going to get him in trouble. Like, he understands he's been in infinitely more pressure situations than this one. I also, though, wonder, did he come here to play and coach a team that it's impossible for them to generate chances? Like, does he enjoy that? Like, you would take this job if you didn't have other opportunities. You would be like, all right, I'm going to come to this franchise that hasn't made the playoffs in 6 seasons. We're going to spend money, but we're going to spend money in a way in which that if one of our players gets injured, we have 0 chances to score goals until the summer window. I think that it's more likely if he leaves, I think it's more about frustration. I don't think it's getting dismissed. I don't think there's a situation in which he would get fired at any point in his contract. But I do think it's possible that he's like, this is not what I signed up for. This kind of sucks. I'm going to go be a GM for a Swiss team again, because then at least I don't have to answer Jamoke questions about why aren't you playing this guy?
I think he has been. Honestly, it's impossible for me to predict how this front office is going to interact. They could just as easily, he could get frustrated. He's been very measured in front of the camera. Maybe there's been some Reddit posts about maybe some frustration, maybe behind the scenes, with I think with the 4-0 loss. I think there was he was
yelling at the doctor on the sideline.
Yelling at Dr. Sogat, maybe a one-sided conversation on Reddit. Impossible to read into that. That could just be heat of the moment type stuff. Who knows? But I think that I think that the team could easily, fire him, get rid of him. They could be exactly like what Montreal is. I hope upon hopes. I hope. I at this point, I do not care whether Rennie is remembered as a good coach, bad coach. I want to see this team just see something out. Let's give him. He's talked about 3 windows. He's had one of them, so 2 more windows. So we're talking summer, winter of next year. Honestly, I'd be willing to spot him another window in the summer, because that short season is going to be, who cares? Like, this is all about, this just like a quick little thing just to set up the actual, like, when the real season begins and we have the European calendar. By that 27-28 season, that is where if things are not good, if things are not in a good place, I think then you could see him say, you know what, this is really frustrating. This is not for me. I think he knows what's in front of him. I think he seems very realistic about the roster and what it is and the construction of it all. I think he knows there are probably players he is starting right now, like Pirani, that he knows, like there's not a long
given a real roster, these guys would not see the field.
Yes. Given a competitive roster, maybe Pirani comes off the bench. I'll give him that. Like, he showed well off the bench, but other than that, not a player, and also a player that's exiting his U22 deal. So he most likely gone. So I think he knows what this roster is. I think he knows this is a longer project. I think it's more likely he sees this out than DC. DC firing him.
Yeah. Also, he's also the highest paid manager in DC United's history and one of the highest paid in the league. And I don't imagine we would want to pay him out the rest of his contract to not coach.
That is something that Jason Levin, I think there are certain players that have stuck around because too much money. We're not going to buy that out. Sorry.
Yeah. That next question here, leading into our Wednesday game, in the Open Cup. Hey, are you hungry? Says, who would you start this Wednesday rotated squad? I was thinking about this right before we talked, and I think at the beginning of the season we said we should go all in on the Open Cup. It's our one chance at winning a trophy. You may still say that. I think if we can't score a goal against a Division 3 side, then I think with a rotated side, I can't imagine if we got out of this round that it was going to change, because we're going to get MLS opposition in the next round most likely. We can't score against MLS right now.
Hey now,
no,
buddy.
Not necessarily?
You're doubting the greatness of the Richmond Kickers.
It was chalk. It was pretty chalk last Open Cup, I recall, after the first round MLS came in. But I would say that this is an opportunity for major squad rotation. That's how I would take this. I would give some people opportunities.
Yeah, and some interesting notes. I wanted to look up some of the players for One Knocks. Oh, I thought Connor Doyle played for One Knocks, but I guess he doesn't. I don't know if there are any players I'm looking at for them, but One Knocks is a good USL League One team. They will certainly, comparatively, this is a little bit of a tougher draw. I'd be much happier about drawing the Kickers right now, considering where they are right now than One Knox. One Knox are very competitive in the league. Their stadium is awful as far as the baseball stadium that they play in, but they are a pretty talented team. They beat the Kickers 1-0 over in Covenant Health Park. So again, a pretty good USL League One team. I believe they finished in the playoffs last year. So they're going to be competitive. They're currently 4th right now. 3 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. So, but I think DC should still win. I think they should go in. They should hopefully win comfortably. Regardless of the rotation.
Listen to the bench against New England, and these are some players that should be able to start. You have Stroud, Kojima, Markovic, Antley, Bono, Murrell, Clark, Turner, and Luis. That makes up 8/11ths of a starting 11 that should beat this team. That should be Knox.
Honestly, this might be a moment. I mean, if you want to throw Luis out there as a start,
yes, do it.
Get him some goals and some action, and maybe give him a little bit of confidence moving forward.
I would definitely do this. That's the way I would treat the. I think you and I would love to get on another flight to Nashville for a quarterfinal, but I've just this does not feel like the year for that. This does not seem like the time for that.
I don't know. I still think if you are a manager, if you're a team, I think last year for Troy Lesane, it was like the one thing maybe keeping him in the job was the fact that they were still alive in this tournament. But I think with regards to Renee, I mean, if you want to generate some form of momentum, a cup run would do that, in my opinion. And I think it would get a lot of the hardcore fans excited. And I think it would be a worthwhile.
I just don't think we have it in us.
That might be true. And that might be true. We'll get to the final round, but I think this team is a team that plays soccer that keeps games close. So in a cup competition, that is kind of beneficial. In a lot of ways, to be that team that's kind of like,
we just got to get Jordan Farr in the field. That's all. We just got to play to shoot. We got to play to the shootout. That's what our plan is to do.
Yeah, but
that's all of our public questions. We got a lot of Patreon questions to get to, but that's all we've got on this end. So you've got a game to look forward to on Wednesday, which will be one day after this comes out for you folks. And then we've got an opportunity next week. We'll have a recap of that. And are the Spirit back yet? Are they playing this weekend?
I think it's still the international break, but they might be.
All right, so it'll be a very light show next. Maybe I'm talking about hockey a lot Monday. Who knows? We'll see.
All right, folks. I think that'll do it for the free edition of the show. We're going to switch over to the Patreon edition. We're going to preview some of the games next week and maybe talk a little bit about more stuff that's on our mind. So stick around for that if you're on the Patreon. So again, $5 tier or higher, and you get access. We had an interview previewing Dallas. We've had interviews with Jason Anderson, so it's definitely worth it. We're trying to make it worthwhile in that subscription. So. Thank you guys so much for listening on the free edition. If you're on the Patreon, stick around. You got more show coming. Vamos.